Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I am showing you the long-awaited Charizard GX. Now, I told you this was coming. I told you we were getting one in Burning Shadows. I told you that as soon as it was revealed, I would show you what it did and how it works. Well, it has been revealed, so I suppose it's time to show you what it does and how it works. Now, Charizard, we're going to keep getting Charizard cards, and the reason very simply is kids love Charizard. He is probably the most popular Pokemon, except for maybe Pikachu, but kids go crazy for Charizard in the Pokemon trading card game. It's no surprise we've got one, and spoiler alert, we're going to be getting a bunch more. He's got 250 HP, which is on the high end for a Stage 2 GX like Solgaleo. He is a Fire type, which is quite good for Lurantis and Decidueye, although to be perfectly honest, the first attack isn't going to get a KO even with weakness, and the second attack is going to get a KO without, so it's actually kind of irrelevant. The water weakness is not irrelevant though, because of Lapras, because of Water Box. People are playing water decks at the moment, not to mention Greninja's making a bit of a comeback. And the retreat cost of 2 is slightly annoying because it's not enough to use heavy boots, but it's too much to just retreat with 1 energy. Boo. Now, the fact that he's a Stage 2 is an issue. You've got to use Rare Candy to evolve up. This makes your deck slow. This means you have to use more items, which is a problem with Garbodor running around. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you're a Stage 2 grass Pokemon, you've got Forest of Giant Plants. Outside of that, you've got to be really good to be a viable Stage 2 Pokemon. And we saw that this was the case with Gardevoir GX just the other day. Can Charizard keep up? Well, the first attack does 70 damage for free energy, and this is not good. Tapu Koko does a flat 130. Tapu Bulu does 120, but you do have the opportunity to discard the energy attached to him and put it up to 180. Charizard doing 70 is not good. Now I know Charizard is all colourless energy and you can use double colourless energy, but he's also a Stage 2 rather than a basic. So to have a Stage 2 whose attack is significantly worse than a basic's attack, in fact, many basics attacks, that, ladies and gentlemen, is not particularly good. I mean, goodness, we've got Kamala. Kamala can do 100 damage for free colourless energy. Now, I know that he needs to be asleep to do it, whereas Charizard doesn't. But it's 30 more damage on a basic. No, Charizard, no. But the thing that annoys me most about this attack is that you're hitting 70 damage. So you add on a choice band, you're doing 100 damage. You then double that because you're hitting for weakness against an EX or a GX, you're doing 200 damage, which isn't enough to KO Lurantis GX and isn't enough to KO Decidueye GX. So if you're not KOing the 2 major grass weak GXs in one hit for free energy on a Stage 2, why would we like this? The answer is we don't. Now the second attack is a little bit better, and by a little bit better I mean an awful lot better. What it does is it allows you to do a whopping 300 damage, as long as you're willing to discard free fire energy attached to this Pokemon, and as long as you've got 5 energy attached to Charizard, at least 3 of which are fire energy. Now, this might look a little bit reminiscent of this Mega Charizard, and the reason here is very simple. Kids like Charizard. Pokemon want to attract children into playing the game, and you look at a Charizard card and you're like, oh, that's Charizard, I like him. You then see that Charizard does 300 damage. 300 is a very big number. We don't really have attacks that do 300 damage very often, and now we're thinking, hang on a second, this is looking very nice indeed. And then that makes kids want this Charizard card, and we are off. And discarding free energy is not the worst thing ever, as long as you can then get the energy back on him and cycle this turn after turn. It's interesting to note that Hooh GX, in my mind the worst GX we've had so far, has the highest base damage for any GX attack so far revealed, and that only does 240. Yeah, this is a very powerful attack. And if we can get this working, this will be a good card. And it's worth pointing out that this will KO anything. Wailord with a Fighting Fury belt, he gone. 250 HP GXs with heavy boots, they gone. You really can get rid of absolutely anything here. So, first question, how do we get the energy on him? Well, we can use double colourless energy, which is always handy. You have got Max Elixir. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck. Attach a basic energy you find to one of your benched basic Pokemon. Although this would have to be done before he evolved up, so you wouldn't Max Elixir onto Charizard, but you could Max Elixir onto Charmander. You can use Experience Share, so when one of your Pokemon gets knocked out, the energy goes on to Charizard. And the great news about Charizard is you can afford to use a tool like EXP Share. You are not going to be using Choice Band, ladies and gentlemen. Well, maybe for the first attack, but not for the second attack, because let's face it, you're already doing 300 damage. So EXP Share is an option, as is the upcoming tool Wish Baton. Now I have made a video about this, link in the description, but I have mentioned this in a couple of videos lately. Wish Baton you attach to your active Pokemon, and if your active Pokemon gets KO'd, you move free energy from that Pokemon to one of your bench, i.e. could be Charizard here. And then of course, as soon as you've moved the free basic fire using Wish Baton, you then chuck a double colourless energy on there and you are absolutely good to go. Now in Expanded, we've got the card Blacksmith, which is really, really handy. Allows you to attach 2 fire energy from your discard to Charizard, but that's actually still not enough. You can use Blacksmith as your supporter for the turn. You can use double colourless energy as the energy to attach for the turn. And you've still only got 4 energy on, not the 5 that you require. This is slightly awkward. And by slightly awkward, I mean really bloomin' annoying. Now, discarding free is a pain, but this can be managed with Blacksmith. What you do is you pop a double colourless energy on him, or use a Blacksmith early game. You then just Blacksmith, attach for your turn, 300, discard free energy. Then you play a Blacksmith, attach for turn, do 300, discard free energy, repeat until you've won the game. This can keep you rolling in Expanded, but you've still got to get your stage 2 out, and you've still got to get at least 2 energy on there first of all. Now we also have Kiawe. Kiawe allows you to search your deck for 4 energy, which makes it much more reliable, and attach them to Charizard GX. Yay! But it then ends your turn. So you can do this at the beginning of the game to get the energy on Charizard initially, but you can't do this throughout the game to keep getting the energy back on. Early game, yes. Mid to late game, no. There's no point discarding your energy, recovering it with Kiawe, and then waiting till next turn to attack. That's not really going to get you very far. Now the GX attack here has a similar cost to the first attack, but instead of 3 colourless, it's 2 colourless and 1 fire. And as I always say, I like my GX attack to be the same cost as my regular attacks, because I don't like adding extra energy for a GX attack that I'm only going to be able to use once per game. What's even more annoying here is that if this was all colourless energy, you could tech Charizard into any other deck. As it is, you've got to be playing fire energy, or I suppose rainbow. But it is a fun GX attack. Discard the top 10 cards of your opponent's deck. That is 1/6 of their deck straight away discarded, which means if they've got 10 or fewer cards remaining, you discard them all, your opponent can't draw a card to begin their turn, and they lose immediately. And there's other things you can use with this. We've got Team Rocket's Trickery. Flip 2 coins for each heads, discard 2 cards on the top of your opponent's deck. You've got the G-Ware I did a video about just a couple of days ago, link to that in the description, where you flip a coin for a double colourless, and if heads, discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, and you combine with Victini to give yourself a 75% chance of head. But the issue here is that this is a once per game attack, and Charizard isn't a milling card. It's a card that has a milling GX attack. So, what are you going to play this with? Are you going to tech this into a Beware deck? Because this is a stage 2 that requires a specific kind of energy. And that's an issue. We've got stall decks or control decks like Lapras and Sylveon that aim to slow the game down, and maybe with a deck like that, discarding 10 cards as a GX attack would be immense. But what are you going to do? Take a Stage 2 Charizard and some Water Energy into a Sylveon deck just for once per game? Now, to be fair, by the time this comes out, Lysander will essentially have rotated. This should be legal for Worlds. Straight after Worlds, we expect Lysander to rotate, which means that you can evolve up on your bench a little bit safer. But let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I'm clutching at straws here. This is not a card which you can easily tech into a deck. But it has a GX attack, which really lends itself to being teched into other decks. And that's what I dislike about the GX attack. I really like this GX attack. I just really don't like it on Charizard, which is a slight shame. Now, before we go, I do have to remind you about Hooh GX. Hooh GX, again, I did a video about this, link in the description. It's got a GX attack for Fire Double Colorless on a basic Pokemon. Put 3 in any combination of Fire, EXs and GXs from your discard pile onto your bench. So you can use Hooh to put Charizard straight onto your bench without having to go through all the evolution malarkey. Yay! In Expanded, when you've got Battle Compressor, this is a lot more reliable. And of course, you've got Blacksmith to help Hooh get going much more easily. But do remember that if you use Hooh's GX attack to get Charizard out, then you cannot later use Charizard's GX attack because it's once per game. Maybe in Expanded with Blacksmith, you can use Hooh and then use a Wish Pattern and he gets KO'd and those free energy go on to Charizard, and then you Blacksmith and just keep attacking for 300 every turn with Blacksmith. This might work, but it doesn't half seem a little bit clunky. And I should mention with Wish Pattern, and if your opponent plays a Field Blower, then you don't get to move the energy anyway. There is a world, ladies and gentlemen, in which Hooh is viable and we've got good fire acceleration. And then you can smash for 300 every turn. Maybe Hooh, Blacksmith and Wish Pattern give us that in Expanded, but I don't think that's going to be smooth enough. Until we get that format, I'm going to have to give Charizard GX 2 Wassies. I want it to be good, I want to love it, but a 5 energy attack on a Stage 2 Pokemon, it's just not going to work often enough. And as I often say with these kind of cards, I really hope I'm wrong. I'd love to take this to a tournament. Then again, if you see Charizard as one of Pokemon's biggest mascots, and we want a really cool looking card that does a lot of damage to entice younger players into the game, then Charizard GX does exactly what it's supposed to. Now, you know the deal, there is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. Use them both. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @TheWassie, and as always, by far the most important thing, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.